Are we ready?
2 seconds, John. I'm not quite sure why it's not loading. Here we go. Here we go. No. 1 second, John. I apologize. Hey guys, hey guys, hey guys. We are live. I am sorry about the technical delay. Um, I am trying some new stuff to make this better for you guys. I want to give a massive, massive warm welcome to the amazing John G. Sutton. This guy has done so much and he's blessed us. He's blessed us with returning like you guys wanted. Um, I've had over 140 questions for this amazing man. Most of them are to do with his amazing story, mainly in the prison system. He's agreed to answer all of these questions or most of these questions. Honestly, he does not know any question I'm going to ask him. If there's anything you want to ask him, please leave a comment. We have got Vic in the background that will let me know, guys. But John, hope you are good, my friend. Hope you are good.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Here I am. Hit me with your rhythm stick. I'm game for a laugh.
Definitely, definitely. So the first question, this is, I'll not mention the names just in case I don't want to be out there. So how scared was you on your first day as a prison guard?
No, I wasn't scared. Not as a prison officer. No, I wasn't. I mean, I was going in there doing a job. Don't forget, I've been in the military. I've been involved in situations. I was in Libya in 1969 when Colonel Gaddafi took over, and they surrounded us with these blokes dressed up in crazy uniforms, firing bullets at us over our heads. But I wasn't afraid of going into the jails. I mean, on a one-to-one basis, I was reasonably confident in my ability to handle things. And don't forget, prisoners are just human beings, just like you and me, except they're in a difficult situation. And in my experience, people who are in difficult situations like that need understanding. They don't need abuse. And me, in my first day in uniform, you feel a little bit conspicuous. Don't forget you're wearing a big hat. But I'd been used to wearing a big hat when I was in the military, so for me it was a day at work. Yeah.
Definitely. The second question was actually reflecting on that. Obviously, you've said it didn't affect you. So the next question would have been, if it did affect you, how did you cope with that? But obviously, because of your military background and experience before, um, you went into that situation quite comfortable.
I was reasonably comfortable with it. I mean, don't forget, it's a challenging situation both for prisoners and for prison officers during their initial period, because you're not exactly certain of what the rules and regulations are. There's quite a lot of rules and regulations. Anybody who's been inside those walls will know. So you've got to tread reasonably carefully. But on a personal one-to-one basis, I hadn't got a problem. I always found as I did in the military, if you treated people with reasonable respect, then that's what you got back.
Exactly. And that was something that kind of touches up on the next question. So, knowing what you know now after serving obviously 10 years as a prison officer, if you could turn back the clock, would you have still gone and served your time as a prison guard?
Well, I think if I had time to reflect on it, I would have definitely attempted to go in in a different grade. I would have tried to go in as a prison governor, because as a prison officer, you really can't influence things greatly. All you can do is just do your job to the best of your ability. But if you can get in as a prison governor, then you might have some remote chance of doing something meaningful. I tried to do something meaningful as a blue collar basic grade prison officer, and attempted to recruit staff all around the United Kingdom to join me in an effort to actually produce a union that was going to treat A, inmates in a humane manner, and B, treat the prison staff in a humane manner. And that was something that I decidedly did not succeed in doing, although I created a great many waves.
Definitely. So, obviously, you say you would have gone back at a different level. Could you just explain to viewers what the uh, structure is in a prison system, from obviously bottom right up to top, just so people know where you'd like to have joined in?
Well, when you join the prison service, I mean, we're going back 45, 46 years now, goodness me. But when you were accepted into the prison system, you were given what's known as a warrant card, yeah? So you held a warrant from the Queen, from the government, to actually undertake your duties, and part of the powers of a prison officer included all those of a police constable. So you could actually arrest people and progress them through the system and charge them with offences under the Prison Act, or if necessarily under any other statutory instrument. Basically, when you join the prison service as a basic grade prison officer, then you go through a series of training courses, and eventually you are, assuming that you pass these, you are posted to a prison. Just like in the military, when you go through the military training, you're posted to a regiment. So in the prison service, you're posted to a prison. In my personal case, I was posted to HM Prison Wormwood Scrubs.
And that was your first one after training, did you say, Wormwood Scrubs?
Yeah, HMP Wormwood Scrubs, which at the time was the biggest prison in Europe, and it
I
contained.
remember.
Yeah, go on.
No, I was just going to say, you remember you saying there was it 200 people on one wing,
On one
on
landing,
one landing?
one single landing, there were 200 inmates on one single landing. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, with 5 staff, I believe.
5 staff, yeah. One in the office, central office, and one on each quarter. And you unlocked them, slopped them out, banged them up, counted them, ensured that there was reasonable good order and discipline, yeah.
And that's it. Reflection on that, over your 10 years from 75 to 85, have you ever seen or experienced a prisoner that's tried to commit suicide or self-harm who has been convicted of child sex crimes or sex crimes in general, that you have had to deal with either preserving life or had to think about their crimes? If so, what was your thoughts on that, and how did you deal and react to that?
Well, first of all, what an individual has done to get themselves into prison is not a concern to me as a prison officer. As a prison officer, my basic duty is to make sure that they're safe, secure, and that they remain in custody. That's my duty. It isn't my duty to judge them or to consider what they've done to get themselves into prison. And don't forget, there are many people who are in prison for committing sexual offences who tell people that they're in for armed robbery or burglary or whatever it is, because they are frightened if their offences become general knowledge in the prison system, that some hero will take them out. And believe me, it is not the position of any member of staff or any other prisoner to actually start avenging society by attacking an inmate. No matter what they've done, it's not their job. Now, listen, when I was at the Scrubs, quite early in my career at the Scrubs, I met one particular prisoner who was in for sexual offences, and one of the staff took me to one side and said, "Stay away from him. they call him a nonce, I said, oh, really? Why is
Yeah.
that? I said, well, what he was doing, he was getting treacle, and he was smearing treacle on his erect penis and getting infants to suck the treacle off his
Yeah.
erect penis, So that was one particularly obnoxious offence. And then there was another guy on the landing who was openly on the landing, and what he had done was he got himself into a position working with adults with learning difficulties, and he had been abusing the adults, many people in wheelchairs and people who were mentally handicapped. So
Yeah.
I mean that I find that personally particularly offensive, but it wouldn't inspire me to go and
Definitely.
stick one on his snotter. That's not my job at all. My job is to make sure that
Oh,
that man stays in prison and he's safe. That's my duty. That was my duty.
exactly. And that shows your integrity. Sorry,
No,
John, that does show your integrity, guys, and somebody to be able to distance themselves from maybe whatever he thought about that person, no matter what he'd done, is a massive thing, guys. Always remember that. But John, have you ever come across anyone in that situation that's tried to self-harm, where you've been with staff, maybe you've had to cut them down before they've um,
a number of
finished
times
their
I've
attempt?
dealt with people who have attempted to kill themselves. There was one particular incident that stuck in my mind, and I'd only been in the prison service perhaps 3 or 4 months, maybe about that,
Oh,
and it was at unlock around about 7 a.m. during a weekday, and we were just about to unlock the cells when I heard the bang, bang, banging on the door, and I opened the cell to see what the problem was, and standing in front of me was a man who was covered from head to foot in long streaks of semi-congealed gore, blood dripping off him. And what had happened was
wow.
his his cellmate, who had the bunk bed above him, had slashed his wrists, and it bled through the mattress. And as he'd bled through the mattress, the man who was underneath, the man that's standing at the
Yeah.
door, it had dripped and congealed all around him, so that when he woke up in the morning, he was surrounded by like a net of dangling half congealed blood, and he was dripping with this man's gore from the bed above. Now, strangely enough, the man in the bed above wasn't dead. I mean, he was very, very
Wow.
close to being dead, but he wasn't dead. So, and immediately I got some member of staff to go and get the prison hospital staff. They came running in with a stretcher. We lifted the man off the bed onto the stretcher and did our best to prevent any further loss of blood. But his blood pressure had fallen to such a level that he wasn't pumping out blood anymore. You see, the thing is, you've got to remember this. Anybody who's thinking of cutting their wrist to commit suicide, it really is a waste of time if you cut it across that like that. That won't work, because what happens is you'll pump out quite a lot of blood, maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 pints, but your
Yeah.
blood pressure drops. Your blood pressure drops to the extent that there isn't enough blood pressure to pump the blood out. So you'll just become unconscious. And if somebody finds
Oh,
you
wow.
within a few hours, you'll survive, because they'll give you a blood transfusion, which is what happened to that man, by the way. But if you're really interested in actually doing the job properly, you open it up. Don't let me tell you how to commit suicide, but that's how you do it. You slash it right down, open the thing up properly. I've seen 1 or 2 of them. They didn't survive. But anyway, they got this guy off, rushed him off to hospital, took him out. Hammersmith Hospital was about, a quarter of a mile away down Duquesne Road. And the guy who was covered in blood, I said to him, listen, are you all right? You'll sit down, we'll have a talk, make sure you're all right. And do you know what he said to me? I mean, this amazes me to this day. This guy was about 55 years old, and he was a baldy-headed guy with blood all over him. I said, are you sure you're all right? He said, sure, Gov, I'm all right. He said, I robbed the body first. Yeah,
Wow.
he'd banged on his cell, but before he'd called the alarm, he'd robbed the man of all his tobacco and his money. Robbed it.
What his cellmate?
Yeah, the guy in the bed with the
Wow.
slashed wrists, he'd robbed him. He says, I got his backy. Yeah, amazing. People are resilient, you see, and they think about themselves. Yeah, so that was a horrible
That's it. I
experience.
mean,
That was
a lot of
horrible.
yeah, exactly. You must have seen a lot of these horrible experiences, and you said that's one that sticks out to you. Did that have any effect on you after you saw that mentally, and did it affect you in your personal and family life after?
You know, I don't know if I'm a particularly tough guy or not, but honestly, I did what I did. I did it right. I couldn't have done any more. The only thing that would have affected me is if I had neglected my duty and I did something that had caused this man harm, and I didn't. What I did was absolutely, as to the best of my ability, dealt with his situation, got him out of there into the hands of the hospital staff, who miraculously, in my opinion, miraculously helped to save his life. So he lived to tell the tale. And here I am telling you that no, it didn't really affect, didn't play on my mind. I'll tell you that, because I've seen worse things than that.
I'm glad you've just said that, John. Don't take this the wrong way. The next question I want to ask is, in your entire life, what is the thing that has caused you the most personal effect after you've seen it in your life, whether it be the army, psychic experience, anything?
What's hurt me most? You mean what really has psychologically affected me?
Yeah,
Yeah, psychologically. I mean,
yeah, and
my father was a police officer. He was a detective inspector with the Criminal Investigation Department, and he was a big guy, ex
oh,
Special Forces, and before he'd been in the force, he'd been a blacksmith, and he could knock a hole through a horse, and he was a particularly
yeah, wow,
angry man at times, and his idea of discipline, believe this or not, he had a leather belt that, like, they used to, you know what they used to sharpen razors on, a leather strap, yeah,
like cutthroat,
yeah,
leather belt for cutthroats at barbers
cutthroat
and stuff.
ravers, yeah, that's what they had. He had one of them,
Yeah, yeah,
except he'd cut it into tassels, so that it was, and
yeah.
he used that like a cat of nine tails, and that was the punishment that was administered to me as a child by my father. And I can't say I blame. He didn't know any better, because his father before him had been an extremely violent man. His father before him had been an extremely violent man, and his
Yeah.
father's father had been an extremely big violent man. They're all nutters.
Like a learned behaviour.
Yeah, and that was it. He was like a Victorian dad. You will not do this. And if you did anything wrong, that's
Very
what you got.
strict, and but I bet he had integrity and respect, like yourself.
Well, he did. He was a straight guy. He was an honest copper. I'll tell you something about my dad. Yeah,
Definitely.
he was an inspector, and his friend was an inspector, and his friend says to him, "Listen, do you want to be a chief constable or chief superintendent?" My dad said, "Well, I'm working my way there." He was about 38 at the time. He said, "I'm working my way there." He said, "Well, listen,
Yeah.
join the Masons. Join the Masons with me." He said, "and you'll get there." And my father was a Roman Catholic. And he went to see the priest, and he said, "Listen, I've been
Yeah.
invited to join the Masons. They said it's going to benefit my career." And the Catholic priest said, "You must not do this. It's against your religion." So my father did not join the Masons. His friend went on to be a chief constable, and my dad, well, he didn't. So there's
Yeah.
something there, but he wouldn't do it. despite the fact they said this will open all the doors for you, he wouldn't do it because he was
Yeah.
true to his beliefs.
And
So he
that's the
was
same with
a
you,
man of his
John. You're a very, very strong-minded person, and I can tell that you got it from obviously your upbringing, from your father, from your grandfather, and that has obviously helped you with your career in everything. Um, One question I will ask this one before I ask the next one: do you think prison time was harder back then when you started in 75 than what it is now? And what could improve the current system that's from breaking point?
I believe that the prison system is on breaking point at the moment, and it's to do with drugs and the fact that people are being groomed into gangs, and they've got this like terrorist groups there at the moment. I mean, back in the 1970s, early 70s, when I joined, the staff, I mean, there are prisons that are relatively easygoing, and I never served in one of them. I served at the Scrubs and I served at Strangeways, and they were known as screws nicks. You know what I mean? The staff ran them. The
Yeah,
staff ran the jails, not the inmates. And if any inmate did decide that they wanted to take the staff on, then they had to be dealt with. And they were dealt with in a manner that I personally didn't agree with. But they were bounced around the landings and slung into what's known as the block, where they were incarcerated in the silent cells. Now, the reason that they call the cells on the block the silent cells, the reason they call them that is because it didn't matter how loud you screamed,
yeah,
nobody was going to hear you. Seriously, that's why they call them silent cells.
For those that don't know, John, the block, could you explain that? It's kind of
Yeah.
like a prison within the prison, isn't it? If you obviously you've got the experience, you can give it a lot better description and detail, just for anyone that doesn't know. And why would people end up in the block from a normal wing?
Well, let's say you're on the wing and you decide, that you don't like it there. You want to move your cell, and for some unknown reason, you might just not be getting on with your cellmates. So you kick up. And what will happen by kicking up, you will provoke a prison officer or hit another inmate or start a fight on the landing. And then it's back at Strangeways and the Scrubs back in the 70s, you'd get as many men as it took. It might only take one or two. But if it took 5 or 6 or 10, that's how many you get. They were available. And you get dragged off the landing, and at Strangeways, it was down onto the first landing of D Wing, D1, and that was right at the end, and that's where you went into what's known as the block. They had a series of cells which were single accommodation, and you were thrown into there. You'd have all your clothes ripped off you, and you'd be locked in there until such a time as you'd been adjudicated. And the adjudication would be you'd be marched in front of the governor, and you didn't have any choice. It was almost like a court-martial with the military, And the governor would make a decision as to what you were getting. And believe me, way back in the 70s, you could get sentenced to things like 7 days bread and water. Imagine that.
What to live off? Like 7 days, you surviving off bread and water?
Yes, bread and water. You got half a pound, a loaf that weighed about half a pound, yeah, and that was your food for the day, and still just ordinary still water. And if we go back to the end of the 60s and the start of the 70s, you could actually get sentenced to being flogged, and you were whipped by a cat o' nine tails and the staff that did it were the gymnasium staff, the physical training officers. They used to.
They were all big guys.
Well, not necessarily big guys, but they could certainly. They were certainly fit and strong, and they didn't mess about. They really.
How did you feel? Yeah, definitely. How did you feel when somebody went to the block and was on that? Did that ever make anything, or was it just you were doing what were right because it's your job and that's what you believed?
Well, I didn't particularly think it was a good idea for inmates to be kept in utter silence. You know, they were, because the staff gave you the silent treatment. Down at the Strangeways, that was one of their tricks. They wouldn't speak just to the inmates. No,
Oh,
dead silent. Open them up one at a time, out into the lavatory, slop out, back into the cell, shut them in. Absolute nothing, not a word spoken. I'll tell you a little story
wow,
about the block at Strangeways. This is God's honest truth. There was a guy in there
definitely.
who was he was not he was being considered for transfer to Rampton, I believe it was, which was the secure unit for the criminally insane, and he was quite aggressive. And one day I saw him and I said, you know, are you all right? No, no, he said, I'm not all right. He said, I'm not all right. There's yellow mice and green mice and blue mice and pink mice running around my cell. I thought, oh my God, you know, you know, he is definitely on the twist. But
Definitely.
what had happened was, listen to this, what had happened, the staff had been catching mice, getting paint from the art department and painting the mice. Seriously, painting live mice and putting them into his cell. And this guy thought he was going mad. And so did the psychiatrist when he told him. And so
Anyone
did
would.
I. Yeah, but it
Yeah.
wasn't. It was the
Wow.
staff taking the piss. They were dangerous bastards, I'm telling you.
Definitely. And for you guys that don't know, John did touch upon that. Rampton is a secure hospital for the criminally insane. It's
Yeah,
at Broadmoor.
yeah. Mhm.
It is a place that is classed as a hospital. So if you get sentenced, your sentence does not stop because you go to either Broadmoor or Rampton. They assess you as a patient, not a prisoner.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
right.
Thank you, John. This question's from Jamie. Have you ever developed a friendship with any of the inmates?
Well, not during my time serving as a prison officer. I have gone out of my way to help certain prisoners who have shown a degree of contrition and want to actually do something with their lives. I have, for instance, recommended
Hmm.
books that they could read and been prepared to discuss the meaning of the books with them. And I've got them
Wow.
onto education courses. I have actually gone as far as reading poetry to them and generally trying to
Wow.
stimulate creative thought. But as for actually making friends with inmates, you wouldn't do that because it would be favoritism and it would be incorrect for any officer to do that. But if an inmate was
100.
absolutely wanting to try and help himself, then I would go out of my way to actually try and get them where they need to go. But I have, since leaving the prison system, had inmates approach me and ask me for help. And one of those
Wow.
inmates is a very famous man at the moment. He's famous now. You may know of the man. He's called Mark Leach. And Mark Leach is the editor and the director of a book called The Prison's Handbook, if you've ever heard of it. He's also a director of
Yeah, I've heard it. Yeah.
he's also a director of a charity called Unlock, along with Stephen Fry, you know, the famous writer and
Yeah,
humorist,
definitely. Yeah.
Stephen Fry. Yeah. Well, when Mark Leach came out of prison, he was looking for a publisher, and he knew I'd been published quite often, you know, widely. Then he asked me if I would help him, so
Yeah.
I did help Mark Leach get a publisher, and he went on to great success. And good luck to Mark Leach. He's done it. He's beat the system.
Definitely.
He is now a very successful man. Last I heard, he got a helicopter.
Well, that
I
brings
haven't,
me
by the way.
perfect. I haven't either. That fetches me to the perfect next question. What was the most memorable story you can remember of a rehabilitation prisoner that really you thought he weren't going to make it, or you think he's done exceptionally better than you thought he would?
Well, there was one prisoner that I thought really could have made it in society, and indeed he went quite a long way to making it, and that man's name was Paul Sykes. You may have heard of Paul Sykes. He fought John L. Gardner for the heavyweight championship of
Definitely.
Great Britain, yeah. And Paul Sykes came quite close to actually doing it. He was on his way to
He did.
being the heavyweight champion of Great Britain, but John L. Gardner was a very tough guy, and in the end, he just broke him down. And following that, and I believed in Paul Sykes. I knew Paul Sykes. He was at Strangeways when I was there, and he was a bit of a nervous wreck. And I tried to get him. Just said, "All you got to do is concentrate." I mean, he was about 6'4" and about 17 stone. He could do it. This
He's a
lad,
big man.
big fella. He could do it, and he did actually get the opportunity to fight for the heavyweight championship of Great Britain. He just fell a little bit short, and then he went on to get involved in further. You see, he was an aggressive man. He couldn't stop himself. When he saw the red mist, poof, that was Paul Sykes. So he got
That
out,
was it.
and that's what Paul Sykes.
Just before you carry on, John, anyone that does not know who Paul Sykes is, he's a guy from Wakefield, I believe. He's a guy that had very, very much talent as a fighter, but he let his emotions, his anger, and a lot of other stuff ruin what he could have been, like John said, a very, very good and world champion fighter. This guy, he was classed as a bully in the prison system. I don't know how true that is, but this guy is literally somebody from Wakefield. He's a big, big guy. And if he wasn't in a prison system and he thought and used his mentality a little bit better and he had a bit of guidance from somebody like John while he was locked up, he probably would have become a champion fighter. And obviously, you guys know my channel's all about fighting and mental health, guys. Sorry, John.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, he lost his opportunity because he had emotional difficulties and an attitude problem. He really did not like prison staff. He didn't. And which was sad, really, because believe this or not, Paul Sykes, his father, was a prison officer.
Was there?
You didn't know that, did you?
I didn't, and I'm sure everybody here did not know that. That is something exclusive, guys, coming to you, because that's not a well-known fact. When you met Paul Sykes, John, this is a personal question from me. How did he treat the other prisoners and the staff?
Well, listen, the vast majority of prisoners are just ordinary guys who've nicked a bottle of milk or done some shoplifting, and they've managed to get themselves locked up. They've failed to pay the rents, or believe it or not, failed to pay the TV license. Imagine that. You get locked up for it, but you do. And these people in there, they are not accustomed to meeting people like Paul Sykes, because he was big enough to get hold of most people with one hand and slap them senseless with the other. And that was written all over him. You only had to look at that. You only had to look at Paul Sykes to see that. And as far as the staff were concerned, they treated him with great circumspection. As far as I was concerned, it was a matter. I mean, he was not stupid, you know. He was quite a clever man. And if you engage,
I've heard he was a very clever man.
If you engage Paul Sykes in a meaningful conversation, then he got you on his side, and he spoke to you with a degree of respect, not for the fact that you were a prison officer, but for the fact that you had certain knowledge and that you could share it, and you could engage him in a meaningful conversation. Whereas let's be perfectly honest, 60-70% of the prison population have got a degree of learning difficulties. You can check that out. And they couldn't converse with
Yeah,
Paul Sykes. And the ones that thought they were tough guys, if they tried to take somebody like him on, they'd get slapped. Simple as that.
yeah, definitely. I don't know how long he spent in prison. You might know, John. Um,
How
if
long
you
did he
do,
spend in prison? I can't tell you, but I know he spent a number
I
of years, wasted his life.
yeah, it was in the decades, not the few years. But
Oh, yeah.
guys, one of you have just asked me by email, John, did you ever come across Charles Bronson, Charles Salvador, and how did he treat or um, talk to you if you did?
I never did come across Charles Bronson. I know of him. He's infamous through the system, but I've never met him. But let me tell you this. In 1990, following the Strange Ways riots, I was commissioned by Alan Russberger, who was the editor of The Guardian, the national newspaper, to do a feature on
Wow.
prisons and the why I believed that the riot at Strangeways had taken place, and that was published in the Guardian. It was about 1,500 words. It was quite a lengthy article, and it was published in the Guardian,
Yeah.
and I think it was the 8th of June 1990. And believe it or not, somebody rang me up from Wakefield Prison and said, "Are you the John Sutton?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Charles Bronson's driving us bloody mad. He's got your article plastered on the wall of his cell, and he keeps dancing round, laughing about this article." Yeah. So, although I don't know Charles Bronson, Charles Bronson knows me. Yeah.
He's heard of you. And that's got to be an achievement for your integrity, at least.
Don't know, but he
Because
certainly knows me.
he wouldn't put something like that on if he thought you were talking rubbish. And everyone here knows you are a guy full of integrity. Um, a question here from Jamie again. I have a friend that says it's better to go to prison to get full mental health care. Then do you agree with that, John? So basically, what he's saying is it better to go to prison to get health care with mentality or try on your own on the outside?
Absolutely not. I mean, you go to prison. I mean, generally speaking, that the prison office, the prison staff are not in any way capable of recognizing mental health problems. All they're interested in is locking you up and making sure you don't escape. To a certain extent, they'll protect you, but they're certainly
Yeah,
not going to make any notes about your personal mental health. Slightly different for me because I went on to become a hospital officer, and it was part of my duties to make notes about inmates' psychiatric issues when they were in for evaluation from the courts. So, to a certain extent,
definitely.
yeah. But as a
I
general
had
rule, no, not good.
exactly. I had sorry, John, a question. Did you ever work on K Wing in Strange Ways? And uh, on the healthcare, did you ever feel that somebody's wasn't getting the right level of treatment for their mental well-being?
Most of the time, I felt that people were not getting the proper care for their mental well-being. And I did work on K-Wing, which is two separate questions, because when I was at Strangeways, K-Wing was the YP wing. It was for young prisoners, prisoners aged between 18 and 21. So K-Wing, and I did
Yeah,
only, but I worked on there on occasions. I wasn't permanent staff on K-Wing, but I did work on K-Wing, and in my opinion, the staff there were quite aggressive compared to the main wing, the main wings of Strangeways. I found that the staff on K-Wing treated the inmates, the young prisoners, with a great deal of disdain. Yeah.
Wow. And that was before it became a health wing, or was it like a young prisoners and an health wing combined?
It was young prisoners. There was a health unit. There was a medical unit, but that was on I wing. It was round the
Right.
corner from K wing. Are you with me?
I get you. I mean, I'm just reading the questions. I know where these questions come from because I don't know if you know him, Neil Samworth, a former prison officer at Strangeways. He worked on K Wing, which was a health wing at the time. I know that was after, obviously, you left the service altogether.
Yeah,
Um,
I
so I don't know
I've heard
how it
the
is,
name.
guys.
I have heard the name. Did he write a book?
He did. He did. I don't know what it's called. I don't know what it's called. He's been on a few podcasts. He does do some good stories, and that's how I actually found you. Because I watch his channel. You got recommended, and that's how I found you. And I'm so glad I did. Tales from the Jails with John. He's banging these out good and proper, guys. These are doing so well. Check them out if you're interested in jail stuff, which I know everybody in here is, because everyone I've seen in the chat has asked me a question, guys, and it's all to do with jail. Um, the next question is from my partner, Mrs. Turbo. Oh, wrong one. Do 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 do. I apologize. I am rubbish with all this technical stuff. I'll find out in a second. I will ask you the next question. As a psychic and knowing you had that gift, when was it you first found out you had a gift as a psychic? That's part one of the question.
Right. Well, I was a child. I was about 5 years old, and I previously told you that my father was extremely strict, a Victorian type father. And his idea was that at 6 o'clock at night you went to bed and you stayed in your bedroom and you got up at the next morning when he let you out. Seriously. And he had a key for
Yeah.
the bedroom door because we had lived in a big old Victorian house, very appropriately, and he used to lock the door at night. Seriously. So you were in the room, and it didn't matter whether it was brilliant sunshine, raining or snowing. 6 o'clock at night, you were in the room. So I'm in the room at 6 o'clock at night. It was a brilliant sunny night, and I really wanted to be out there playing, but I wasn't allowed to. I was in the room, locked in, and I just laid on my bed. And I was just too young to read. I couldn't read at that age. And so what I did was I started counting the flowers on the wall. There were little pink flowers on the wall, little pink daisy type flowers. And I don't know how many I got up to, and I was counting them. And
Like the
suddenly,
wallpaper.
yeah, suddenly, instead of being a little boy in that room, I was transported. I went through the wall and I went back. I went somewhere else. I went to a place where there was a river. There were black men black as black, really black men, and they were hauling stones. And there was a man standing on the top of a wooden platform. And I didn't just see this man. I became that man. I became that man. I entered through the back of his head, at the top of between his neck and his shoulders, and I entered the man, and I became that man. And I was directing
How
people.
old was you, John?
5, 6 years old, and that lasted. And I vividly remember being this man, a big, strong man. And the next morning, when I was back in my bedroom, I ran downstairs as soon as I was opened the door, and I told my father and my mother what had happened about this incredible experience, and they said, you must never speak of this again. This is the work of the devil. This you mustn't never silence about this. And the problem was it kept happening, and I couldn't tell anybody. I couldn't tell
On
them.
that note, John, obviously your parents were telling you not to say anything. They were
Absolutely.
saying, obviously, keep it to
Yeah.
yourself. Um, how long before? How often? Sorry, not how long. How often were you having these experiences of you being that big, strong guy?
It went
And
on
what,
for
in
about.
your thoughts, did it
It
mean?
went, it went. The problem was, it went on and on, and I was not sleeping at night. I was somebody else. I became somebody else, and I can't. I just know that what I was happening to, and I know now what it was. I'd been traveling back through time and space, and I had become a part of the team. I was like an architect who was designing and developing the pyramids in Egypt, in ancient Egypt. And I couldn't tell anybody. And because I couldn't tell anybody, it was driving me mad. And I started to have epileptic fits when I was about 6 years old. And this went on for about
Wow.
six to 9 months. And they took me to the doctors. I couldn't tell doctor. You know, my father actually threatened me. You will not speak of this. So
Yeah.
eventually it stopped. And the fitting stopped. I stopped having fits, and I just became a normal little boy again. I assume relatively normal little boy, but I always had the ability very quickly to know things that I had no absolute ability to know. Let me tell you
Yeah.
this: the Catholic Church have a definition for people who are possessed. Yeah, and one of the
Hmm.
definitions is that you are a party or you're given knowledge to which you have no absolute access. You also
Yeah.
got you also empowered with incredible strength, which, as I've previously told you, I had and I still have to a certain extent. You know,
Yep.
if needs be, I can do it. You know, hit somebody so hard they lift off the floor, which is an impossibility. Let's face it.
Definitely.
So
And
there's definitely
guys,
something strange.
yeah, definitely, guys. If you remember from part one, John told you of a encounter, an experience where he lifted somebody off the floor, and it was it was something that he did, and that, guys, is such um a thing. I might be wrong, John. I can't remember if it was you or
It was
something you did experience.
he attempted to headbutt me, and
That was it.
when he did headbutt me, he just flew backwards, flew into the air backwards, landed on the floor, slid across the cell, and was unconscious. Now I hadn't. I mean, how do you plan that? You don't, do you?
Exactly, you can't. And guys, John realized and got these experiences. I apologize if I got the terminology wrong, John. He got these thoughts, experiences, and everything at 5, 6 years old. He was then dealing with a strict family, religious Catholic family that was saying not to obviously say anything to anybody. I was guessing they were concerned at what people would think and say, but that's my opinion. But he then had to deal with that so many times for so long. Um, but so he's known he's had this gift for a long time. The next part of the question I asked earlier was, when was the first time your gift really scared you after knowing you've got this gift?
Well, that's strangely enough. I mean, that was at Strange Ways, and I was there just for the first 2 weeks of before I went to training school, and you get shown around Strange Ways, and I went on to B Wing, B1 landing. Now, I know nothing about Strange Ways at this point in time, other than it's a prison, and it's my first few days there experiencing it. I'm not in uniform, I'm in civilian
Yeah.
clothing, but I'm being shown round. And as I was being shown round, they took me on to B Wing. And as we got towards the end of B1 landing, I started to get a terrible feeling, a morose feeling, like a melancholic pain. And it was almost as if I couldn't bear to go forward, and the tears came in my eyes. I mean, don't forget, I'm there to be a prison officer. I'm not there to be a bloody
Yeah.
poet or anything. And I can feel myself absolute despair was, and I don't know what made me do it. I looked at the cell at the end of B1 landing, and there looked to be somebody in it, sat on a bed. And I said to one of the staff, "What's wrong with this man here? what's wrong with this man? And they said, what
yeah.
man? I said, in this cell here. They said, there's nobody in there. I said, I've just seen him. Have a look. So he said, listen, I'll show you. He opened it up and it was just full of furniture. He said, do you know what this cell is? I said, I have no idea. He said, that is the condemned cell. He said, and that is where they were held immediately before they were hung. They were taken from that cell straight into the execution chamber and hung within a minute. And I had seen a flashback to somebody sitting in the cell at Strangeways on B1 landing. And that, it really shook me up for a while, that.
Definitely. And obviously you didn't know nothing about Strangeways or that
Nothing
cell
about that.
or
Nothing
anything
about that.
then.
Nothing about that.
So what support, if any, did you get for being a prison officer after the things you've seen? And is it good support in your opinion back in the between 75 and 85, guys?
Nothing. No support. You get nothing. No support. Nothing. They won't even listen to you. You know. I mean, towards the end of my career, I was assaulted a number of times, not by prisoners, but by staff. And at the end of it, my wife said, "You can't keep going in here. You know, I've been injured twice. Ended up in hospital once, and from attacks by staff." And I just couldn't continue with that. And I went to see my general practitioner, my doctor, and my doctor said, "You can't go in. You know, I'm putting you on the sick. You just not can't go in." So I sent in a sick note. I don't know what he put on it, anxiety, depression, something like that. And the Home Office, within about 4 or 5 weeks, sent me to see a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist said to me, he said, he listened to what I had to say, and he said, "Mr. Sutton," he said, "I have to tell you, I don't think that there's anything mentally wrong with you whatsoever." He said, "I think there's a great deal wrong with the system." He said, "But it isn't you." He says, "You're just not intellectually capable of accepting the basic malpractice of this insane system." He said, "And I am making you unfit to return to duty." And that was the Home Office. That was the Home Office psychiatrist.
Yeah. Wow. So obviously, how did you feel after you heard that? Obviously, them telling you that, because that was something that you're good at, you know.
Well, it didn't make him any good when I was being good at being a prison officer or not. I just wasn't being allowed to do the basic duty as it should be done, because that's not the way that the prison system wanted it done. The prison system wanted it done that way, and that way included, in my opinion, the basic abuse of the human rights of individual prisoners.
And that's it, guys. On that subject with John, if you remember in the 90s, they had the biggest and longest riots in Europe. It was started and run by Alan Lord. Alan Lord, I'd love to speak to him about this. But guys, everything that happened in the prison system while John was there, he was there in the times where it was humane. They was having to like piss and shit in buckets and slop out and stuff like that. So they obviously rose up in strange ways. And the reason I'm saying this is because the next question is, do you think that helped the entire prison system, what happened at Strangeways with that riot?
Well, I mean, you can see this is on the documentary that the BBC made in 1979. They're interviewing me, and I said, "Listen, if you treat human beings like dogs, eventually you're going to get bitten, And that's what happened at Strangeways. They couldn't continue to do that. And to a certain extent, the only way to stop it was to do what they did at Strangeways. Now, let me tell you this. I wasn't working at Strangeways at the time. I'd left because this was 1990 when they rioted. I left in November 1985. But I got a telephone call from the solicitors representing a number of the rioters who've been charged with rioting offences, smashing the prison up. And they asked me if I would give evidence for the prisoners against the state, against the Home Office, against the Crown. So I actually went to Manchester Crown Court and gave evidence for the defence against the government. And in my statement to the court, I stated that the only way that this monster that Strangeways had become was going to be defeated was by taking it down forcibly. And I gave a great list of the encounters, the diabolical malpractices that were taking place. And when it came time for me to be cross-examined, I was cross-examined by a man called Brian Levison. Now, Brian Levison went on to be the master of the rolls, and he was the man who had headed the Levison inquiry into abuses by newspapers such as the News of the World, the Sun, etc., onto hacking people's telephones. Yeah. You'll remember who Brian.
And that was the downfall of the News of the World and things like that, weren't it? So you were part of the revolution, to be honest, John.
Well, I could have been. I don't know if I was or not. But anyway, Brian Levison, in his first question to me, being cross-examined, I mean, don't forget, this is a serious six-shooter. This is a gunslinger. And his first question to me was, Mr. Sutton, he said, I want you to tell me the names of the staff that have been committing these offences whilst you were on duty. And I said, I'm going to tell you straight away. I said, but at the top of the list, you must put my name, John Sutton. John Sutton is the top of that list. I said, of course, then we can go into the senior staff. We could start off with the governor, and I'll give you his name, and I'll give you the senior medical officer's name, who I've got a list of evidence against, and I made notes, because I always keep a diary. Mr. Sutton, thank you very much. No more questions.
Wow.
That was the end of it.
That was just to
the end of my
you doing it.
It stopped me from doing it. And
go on, sorry, John. Carry on.
The court was held in what's known as camera. So the press and the public were not allowed in to hear my evidence.
Wow. Was there a reason behind that, or was it just the system trying to keep it as hush-hush as possible, in your opinion?
Oh, they just wanted me to shut up. They actually suggested that I was there to actually cause trouble. I wasn't there to cause trouble at all. I was there because I'd been asked to speak on behalf of people who had done something that if I had been a prisoner, I would have done myself.
Yeah, exactly. And guys, I keep saying this, John has got so much integrity. He's got such a strong will and mind. He's the sort of perfect prison officer, because he will not judge you. He said that no matter what your crime is, he will not judge. He will treat you with the same honor, respect, and integrity. And that is what this world is lacking nowadays. This is why I wanted John on. He's such an influential person that he's got so much respect. John, I know we're coming close at the end. German Freedom Fighter is put, I'm just reading your bio. It says you have a daughter. Do they pass down skills like you in doing your art of being a sidekick? So does your daughter have the same gift, basically?
Well, let me tell you, this is not an art. It's a gift. It could possibly even be a curse. Let me tell you that.
Definitely.
And no, my daughter hasn't got that gift, but my grandson has.
Wow. And guys, if you go on his channel, you can see the connection between John, Grumps, as his little grandson calls him.
Grumps.
Them two have it's an amazing connection, and that is something that you can see straight away on his early videos on his channel. So I know most of you have, go and check him out if you've not already on his channel. Everything is interview with Disney, his national TV stuff. Is all the links are in the description this time. It fell short last time, but they are this time. I promise, guys. John, are we all right for a few more questions? I know we said an hour, but are we all right for
Go
two or
on,
three more?
give me a couple more questions. I've got people waiting to speak to me. So, yeah, but
I
I will.
apologize. Right,
No,
we'll
it's
take
all
two
right.
more
Go for it.
questions, guys. Right, two more questions. So, with your psychic gift, did that help or hinder you as a prison guard and serving in the army, as you knew you had it from a young age?
Well, I'll tell you a story about when I was in the army. I was watching the Winter Olympics in the Battery Bar. Battery Bar is like a little club where soldiers get together to watch TV and have a drink, and the Winter Olympics was on, and I was stood round with about 15, maybe 20 of my mates, and the Winter Olympics was on, and this guy came to the top of the big ski jump, you know, the one they go down like that, and he
Yeah.
came. This was live from Innsbruck, and it came on the television. And it said such and such a body is getting on the going to go. This is former European champion, and I just saw something, and I said to the bar, "This is his last ride." Seriously, it was live from Innsbruck. He got halfway down the slope, his ski snapped, he went into the edge and decapitated himself live on television. And the bar said, "Oh my God, you weird bastard." They all got up and walked out.
Holy
Yeah, now
God. So,
that scared
obviously,
me a bit.
yeah, that's gonna definitely. How did you feel? Um, Let me try and think how to put this. You felt obviously with your gift that something was going to happen, or it was going to make sure this was his last jump. How did you feel seeing that live, knowing that you'd already like preempted something was going to happen?
How did I feel about it? Yeah, I felt quite concerned about it, and I've always been concerned about it because it's an onerous gift, or as I said, it's a curse. You know, I mean, when
Yeah,
people contact me and ask me to see the future for them, I can only give what I see, and sometimes
yeah,
what I see is not going to be particularly edifying. It's not going to make somebody happy. So I have to be
yeah,
very cautious about how I deal with that. And I'll tell you something, a long time ago, well, 40 years ago, after I left before I joined the prison service, I was working for a company, and the chief accountant came out of his office. And I looked at the chief accountant. I knew him, and he was transparent. I could see straight through him.
wow,
I could see I could see him right through him. I could see the offices behind him. And I knew then, I thought, this man is dead. This man is not alive.
yeah,
And he died the next day. And I tell you, when you start,
wow,
when you start seeing things like that, you've got to be very careful, because you're being given something here that is truly special, and it can't be. Let me tell you this: the scientists tell me that it can't be, but I'll tell you something else. Manchester University have got a psychology department, and for about 3 years they used to pay me to go and give readings to the class, and they'd all
wow,
tape record what I gave them, and then they'd have discussions. And I was a different lecturer at times. I used to say, "Oh, so you're the professor of psychology this year? How do you know that?" I said, "Listen, that's what I do for a living. You know, what you do for a living is you're a
wow.
psychologist. You're trying to work this out, how it works." I said, "Let me tell you this: I don't know really how it works. It's just a gift, and I give it, and that's the
Yeah,
truth.
and
That's
that's
the
it,
truth."
uh, John. that is such an amazing thing. I'd love to have you read me, to be honest. One last question, because I know people are wanting to talk to you elsewhere. Um, it's John. Do you think ghosts can be shocked from Jayole?
Well, you see, the thing is about ghosts. I mean, what's this thing about ghosts? They're just spirits without bodies. This is just a shell. The way you got to look at life is imagine that your life journey is you get in a car in London and you've got to travel all through your life and you're going to end up at Edinburgh. Yeah. When you get to Edinburgh in the car, yeah, in your car, the car's your body. You don't sit in the car, do you? You get out of the car. And that's exactly what happens with your spirit. This is the vehicle that you're driving at the moment, your body. And when you get to the end of that journey, you get out and you get on with it. You're still the same person. You maintain your personality and your soul is eternal. And of course, just like you can be shocked when you're here in your physical being, you could be shocked when you're in your spiritual being, when you're in your etheric body. Of course you can, and you can prove it to yourself. You will have had dreams where you wake up and you think, "Oh my God, that was absolutely terrible. I never want to experience anything like that." You've been shocked, but you've not been shocked in your physical body. You've been shocked in your etheric or in your mind, and that's the same as when you're in your spirit. Yeah. Okay.
Guys. That's hit the nail straight on the head with that. That's literally left me gobsmacked. And you guys know I am never out of words. But John is being so amazing. Let me just say one thing about John as well. For the charity fight night that all you guys know about, he has been kind enough to donate a book, his autobiography, signed for the raffle. So that is going to be one of the prizes, along with a Ricky Hatton book signed as well. So please show your love to John. Wow, John, you've literally amazed me. I've still got about 100 questions that other people are asking.
All right. Well, I hope you've all enjoyed it, and thank you very much for inviting me. I've been most sincere and truthful in the answers that I've given as the best I can. And if you've any got questions, just send them in, and over a period of time, I'll do my best to answer. Thank you very much.
Oh, massive love and respect, John. So, guys, if you've got any questions for John as well, what I will do is I will collect him. I will contact him in a few weeks. He has got a lot of other stuff on. Remember, guys, this isn't his job. This is something he gives up in his spare time. He's been so grateful to presence me twice with his knowledge, his experience for you guys. Um, I am so honoured to have him on, and I hope I can pass him these questions on, and we can do a little video together just to answer your questions, guys. But just give John the same love and respect you give me. Go and check him out. All his interviews with Disney TV, his website is all in the description. Go and check it out. His website and channels all there. Please show him the same love and respect, guys.
Thanks.
No, John, thank you. Right, guys, much love and respect to you all. I am going to end this stream now. Don't forget, next week we have got the guy that served 30 odd years in prison, innocent. We're going to get him on live from jail in America, but we'll do a video on that. John, just wait 2 seconds. I'll speak to you backstage, but much love and respect to you guys. Thank you.